Iran-backed terrorists physically attacked the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad on December 31st. They didn't get in, but it looked terrifying, a reminder of how al-Qaeda terrorists smashed through the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya in 2012 with impunity under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Now, Donald Trump is very different. Instead of turning the other cheek, he literally sent in the Marines, flying in 100 or so from nearby Kuwait. Just in case you couldn't tell, he was different from the appeasement stance of the past. Trump tweeted that this would be his anti-Benghazi, as in don't mess with him. You know, pay attention to Trump's tweets. I think you'll learn more from them by watching the nightly news. He issued what he called a threat, not a warning. See that there? To Iran for staging the attack. And sure enough, he had a precision airstrike against the number 2 man in Iran, Qasem Soleimani, the terrorist general. Oh, did Iran gnash their teeth at that one? Look at this. Generals crying on TV about their lost terrorist hero. They threatened America so badly, but Trump threatened them back, saying if they touched an American, Trump would flatten not one, but 52 Iranian targets. The whole world was worried. Was it the start of World War III? And then Iran blinked. They fired about 15 rockets, not at Americans, but at Iraqi air bases. There were some Americans on those bases, but not one was hurt. Of the 15 rockets we know about, by the way, 4 didn't even go properly. The missiles failed. Iran essentially set off some fireworks. They also published really tough-looking photos and videos of their supposed massive counterattack, but they were quickly shown to be fakes. Or more accurately, photos from earlier battles elsewhere, as in Iran was just trying to look tough to its own people. But it backed down, it blinked, and so Trump had a triumphant press conference. Take a look.
Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world.
Not only was World War III averted, but America and Iran and the world, well, they all look a little bit different, don't they? America no longer looks like a helpless giant as it was under Obama and Hillary Clinton. If you touch a single American, if you shoot an American base or embassy, get ready to be flattened. Everyone in the world knows that now, beyond a shadow of doubt. The whole world knows also that Iran has a bit of BS and bluster. I mean, of course it should be feared. They're terrorists, they'll kill you. But not to the point of being so afraid that you appease them, not to the point of cowardice as the West, particularly Europe, has done recently. In fact, at that same press conference, Trump asked NATO to take a bigger role at containing Iran.
Today, I am going to ask NATO to become much more involved in the Middle East process.
So a huge win for all the good guys. And Trump keeps his promise of being America first in terms of self-respect, but not someone looking for new foreign wars of adventure. Except one huge thing. See, there was a Ukrainian passenger plane that crashed in Tehran right around the time of Iran's impotent attack on the Iraqi airbase. Like I say, not a single American was wounded, let alone killed. 4 of the Iranian missiles misfired even. But hundreds of miles away, over 170 people died in a plane crash. A new plane, just 4 years old, modern and safe, and according to the Ukrainian airline, it had a very experienced crew. So did it really just crash? If so, why did Iran say they would refuse to give the black box up to Boeing? You know what I mean by the black box? That crash-proof device that records all the instruments in the plane, what happened to any plane right up to the last moment so investigators might learn the cause of a crash? Why did Iran immediately come up with an obviously fake excuse, engine trouble, how would they know, but hide the real proof, the black box? You know, I took a poll on Twitter and asked my followers, I said, which do you think is more likely, an accident or a shoot down? 12,000 people voted. Look at that. I guess 80% of my followers are pretty skeptical. Look, we knew what was up, And that was last night that I did that poll. All right, last night also, Canada's new foreign minister, François-Philippe Champagne, well, he made a friendly phone call to Iran. Friendly. Here, let me read from his official readout, as it's called. That's a partial point form summary of the call as released by his office. You can see it here. You see where it says, the two exchanged condolences for the victims of the crash. See that in the second line there? You can see that Champagne said Canada had many questions that need to be answered, but he didn't say what the questions were or who had to do the answering. And as you can see, there were no notes about what Iran said in reply. I won't even call that a self-serving press release by Champagne, because it actually doesn't serve Champagne to be so subordinate, to be so surrenderish. Now, I note that Iran didn't bother to issue a recap of the conversation. They're probably still laughing at us. You know, Champagne, this foreign minister of Canada, Trudeau's guy, he sent out a press release after Trump took out that terrorist general. But Champagne was even-handed as between good and evil, as between terrorists and our friendliest democracy. Trudeau himself was still in vacation mode, but his foreign minister said that both sides need to restrain themselves. Really, both sides need to exercise restraint and pursue de-escalation. Not just the terrorists, but Trump reacting to the terrorists. Both sides are bad. How's that both sidism working out for you now? 63 Canadians dead on that plane. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump said the obvious early today. The crash was suspicious.
Well, I have my suspicions.
Yeah. He could see the obvious, as could 80% of my followers on Twitter. Trudeau, he's still pretty much on vacation mode. And the mainstream media loves his new lazy vacation mode beard. Look at that. Oh, they just can't get enough of the beard. That's the big story in Canada now, guys. It's the beard. Trudeau's still taking personal days, by the way. He didn't bother to make a public statement. I mean, didn't bother to call up Donald Trump. He hasn't talked to Trump since he mocked Trump at that NATO conference last year. It was the joke of the season. Yeah, can I state the obvious? Trudeau is completely mentally checked out of Canadian affairs, totally checked out from foreign affairs that touch on Canada. By contrast, Trump never takes a day off. So finally, NBC News said what we all pretty much knew. Iran shot down the plane with a missile. Now, the CBC didn't break that news. They weren't that interested. I mean, they were more interested in that cool beard and everything. I mean, they were interested, but they knew what we all knew. And they're pro-Iran, just like they're pro-China, just like they're anti-American. So they showed a remarkable lack of curiosity in chasing down the facts. So they let a foreign network break the obvious news.
Good day, everyone. From New York, we're coming on the air with breaking news regarding that Ukrainian airliner that crashed in Iran early Wednesday morning, killing at least 176 people. A U.S. official tells NBC News that intelligence evidence suggests the plane was mistakenly shot down by Iranian anti-aircraft missiles.
Yeah, for an hour after that, the CBC News website had no stories about the shoot down, because they didn't have their marching orders yet from the Prime Minister's office. Well, that changed. The official line was, don't say a single bad word about Iran. In fact, defend them, but blame Donald Trump. I'm serious. Here's the CBC's Katie Simpson.
63 Canadians dead because of the unintended consequences of a decision made by the U.S. president.
Oh, is that what happened? Here's another CBC reporter with the identical line.
Who's to blame, right? I mean, in terms of, is it the United States? Is it Iran? Is it both? Who's to blame here for what happened?
Oh my God, they are serious. And then when Trudeau finally put on a suit and had a coffee and tried to dry out a bit, went to a press conference. He took 3 questions from the media and said the same thing, 3 identical questions with the absurd blame Trump line. I'm sorry, that's not a coincidence. That's media scripting. Here, take a look at these 3.
Hi, Prime Minister. I just want to circle back to an earlier question. If the intelligence is accurate, then it seems this is the end result of a sequence of events that was sparked by the drone strike ordered by the U.S. president. So given the information you have, how much responsibility does the United States bear for this tragedy?
The evidence suggests that this is the likely cause, but we need to have a full and complete and credible investigation to establish exactly what happened. That is what we are calling for, and that is what we are expecting will happen.
Given the tensions in the area that were the cause of a drone strike by the United States, do you think that the United States is at least partially responsible for this tragedy?
I think it is too soon to be drawing conclusions or assigning blame or responsibility in whatever proportions. Right now, our focus is on supporting the families that are grieving right across the country and providing what answers we can in a preliminary way, but recognizing that there is going to need to be a full and credible investigation into what exactly happened before we draw any conclusions.
Earlier today, President Trump characterized, said he had concerns that a missile might have brought down the plane, and he said it's a very rough neighborhood. I was wondering what you thought of that characterization. How does it make you feel?
I'll let Mr. Trump's words stand for themselves.
Do you feel that the U.S. is partly responsible for this, given that they created the situation in which the missiles were launched? I think that's one of the many questions that people will be thinking about and trying to find answers to. For the moment, I just want to underline the importance of having a full and credible investigation so that we can get those facts, and then we can continue to analyze based on those facts.
Not a word condemning Iran in the whole press conference. I watched the whole thing. No threats against Iran, no accusations, not one consequence, but 3 speculations that Donald Trump was to blame. Iran shoots down a civilian airliner in an attack on an Iraqi airbase. The airliner's hundreds of miles away, by the way. And the media party in Canada and Trudeau blame Trump? I'm serious. Oh, and the CBC is literally arguing that Iran has no obligation to even turn over the black boxes. I'm not kidding. Look at this. A whole series of pro-Iran tweets by this guy, a CBC journalist. I bet they were first drafted in Tehran, and the CBC just translated them from Farsi to English. So here we are. And we started with the obvious news. No one in the world will dare touch America or Americans now, out of fear of massive retaliation from Trump. America's standing tall. The world's tyrants are cowering before him, before Trump and America, but Iran is chastened in regards to America. No World War III. But Canada just got slaughtered. 63 people, triple our losses on 9/11. Worst attack since the Air India bombing. And Trudeau? Well, nothing. Yeah, worse than nothing. He's blaming Trump. For some reason, Trudeau still gives foreign aid to Iran, close to $20 million to Iran since becoming prime minister. Not a chance of a complaint about that. No call for a UN investigation. No call for anything. Everything's fine under Trudeau. Trudeau spoke on the phone with the prime minister of Ukraine. That's a good idea. And for some reason, he called up the prime minister of Holland, but no call to Trump. Oh, why would he? He wants to blame and insult Trump, and he knows Trump doesn't have a lot of time for him anymore. I actually think Trump is a big enough man that he would take a phone call from Trudeau if Trudeau phoned. But I bet Trudeau didn't even think of calling him. I think he's scared to call Trump. So what should we do? I mean, Canada is not strong enough to really hurt Iran like America could. Iran laughs at us like China does. But we can do a few things. I can think of half a dozen. I've listed them on a petition at baniran.ca, baniran.ca. You can sign our petition there if you like. Here's some of the suggestions I have. Number 1, list the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a banned terrorist group. Number 2, expel Iranian nationals who organized the annual Iran-directed Al-Quds Day hate march in Canadian cities. Number 3, revoke the student visas of Iranian nationals who are studying in Canadian universities. Number 4, freeze Iranian assets in Canada, sufficient to compensate the Canadian victims of this terrorism. Number 5, call for an emergency UN meeting to pass a resolution condemning Iran. And number 6, immediately cancel the millions of dollars a year Canada sends to Iran in foreign aid. You can sign our petition at baniran.ca. Look, none of that's going to bring back 63 murdered people. And unlike Trump's military, it won't actually deter Iran from its aggression. But we should do it just for the self-respect. Ban the terrorists, kick out their foreign nationals, stop giving them free money, seize their assets, at least argue against them with the UN. But what's the likelihood of any of that happening? Well, let me put it this way. Justin Trudeau's brother, Alexandre, who was his leadership campaign foreign policy advisor, he's so pro-Iran, he literally made a movie with Iran called The New Great Game, a pro-Iran propaganda film. Yeah, Trudeau is fine with all this, just like he's fine with China taking 2 Canadian hostages, holding them for more than a year. Now, the world has learned not to touch Trump, don't touch any American. And the world has learned that they can do pretty much anything to Canada that they want. That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show, which is a show I do every day. I do a monologue, interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at premium.rebelnews.com.